It would be putting it extremely lightly to say that AEW Dynasty has garnered some mixed reactions, and it's mostly because of the main event or the decisions that were made going into the main event. Now, I threw the question to you guys over on X and over on the YouTube post tab. I'm obviously going to give you my general thoughts on the entire show before we jump into the conversation. I liked the show. As a whole, I like the show. At this point, I've had several hours, or at least a handful of hours, to kind of digest it. It's currently 5 in the morning as I'm recording this, and it ended a little after midnight. So I've had like 4 to 5 hours to get a little bit of a chance to digest and get away from my emotional reaction to the end of the stream, or lack of emotion, I guess. It honestly, the end of that show kind of bummed me out and just kind of killed my vibe. Now, when I say I like the show, it's because on average, if you space out the entire show and you look at all the matches combined, yes, it was still a solid show. That doesn't mean I didn't walk away disappointed. Let me explain. We are approaching 1 year of me watching AEW. During that time, I have watched every single pay-per-view that has been available. When you set a bar as high as AEW typically does for your pay-per-view, sometimes these like, oh my God, my dog just jumped into my lap. Oh God. Okay. Anyway, when you set the bar at a level that AEW typically does, where every pay-per-view or most of the pay-per-views that I had watched during my opening months of first watching this program, it really makes it so these middle of the road shows kind of fall extra flat. It really makes it so these more middle of the road shows feel like they fall a little bit extra flat. Like the highs have been so incredibly high during these pay-per-views, so that these shows where nothing really spectacular happens, it feels like I'm constantly waiting for that spectacular moment to happen. I want to be clear. They're putting on a good show. This is a good wrestling show, and I don't think there's anything wrong with your pay-per-view being good. It just gives that feeling like you're not quite getting what you're expecting to when you watch a show that's just good, when I'm so used to them putting on absolute bangers. Now, we had some matches that were bangers. I want to be very clear here. There are definitely some matches that stuck out here, but there were definitely some that felt like they were a little bit filler, and just like they needed some matches to fill out a 4 to 5 hour runtime. I guess 5+ hours if you watch from 0 hour. Now, I have plenty more to say on the specifics of the show, but I want to let you guys take the lead on the conversation. The first pay-per-view in over a year to not live up to the hype, ending the streak of hot shows since Revolution 2024. That said, it was still a 7 out of 10 show in my opinion. I can't blame anyone who's upset after the end of the main event, but the ending was way too funny for me to be truly upset there. So obviously we were going to talk about the main event, but I want to actually just address the first thing you said really quick about this being, the first not so great show since Revolution 2024. I do disagree with you there. The only other AEW pay-per-view that I remember watching where I kind of felt similar, probably worse, to be honest. I don't think this is the worst AEW pay-per-view that I've seen. I still think the least entertained I was by a pay-per-view from AEW was probably Full Gear of this year, or I guess 2024. I don't know, whatever the last Full Gear was. But I agree, there's going to be a lot of people that walk away from the show and they're immediately just going to think of how they felt after the main event. And that's kind of how I look at it. I walked away from the show feeling bummed, and it's not because the guy that I don't want to win won. I'm just bored of that storyline. The Death Rider storyline, especially the part of it surrounding Jon Moxley, has bored me to the point where I'm no longer invested in rooting against Moxley. I'm just to the point now where I'm ready for it to just end, and I don't care who has the title anymore. I could at least say before that I was rooting for certain people to beat him, and I was looking forward to having that moment. I'm getting to the point where I'm surpassing the pop that I feel like I'm going to get when he loses, and it's just going to be a sigh of relief. His matches are just not my style. I think it's just a little bit too slow for me, especially if you're talking about the main event scene and to close a show. I don't think him relying so heavily on the brutality of the match and biting foreheads and bleeding or anything from that kind of approach, I don't feel like that is enough for me to get truly excited on its own. I think those are good complementary things to a match for me to enjoy it, but it kind of feels like Jon Moxley is leaning into this character of a pure brutality, but not in like an exciting way, not in a way that makes me pop out of my seat for something. It's more just a bunch of small moments that kind of make me cringe, not that kind of cringe, but like literally cringe because he's like licking up someone's blood or something, or taking a suplex on a spike bat or whatever. And I know there's plenty of you that are going to disagree with me on that, but I'm just bored of it. I do wonder how much more forgiving I would be for this storyline and these matches if they weren't always crammed into the main event, though. It seems like there's this trope in wrestling that the main title, the main men's title of the show needs to close the show, and I don't really subscribe to that. I can understand where that mentality is coming from, but I just feel like if I am booking a show, I want the show to end and start with something strong. And whatever happens in the middle happens in the middle. But I want the show to open with a big bang that gets everybody excited. And I want to send everybody out the door smiling, but not necessarily because the good guy always wins. More so, I want them to walk out smiling because they just saw something awesome. I want them to feel like they walked out of a show and feel like, wow, that was awesome. Because usually you're going to remember the end of a show. And I like to think personally, I also remember what opened most shows. Now, granted, you could say that Tony Khan and whoever else is planning the booking or the order of the show thinks that these Moxley type endings, especially if you factor in that the Young Bucks were making their return, I'm sure maybe they thought that that was going to be a more exciting ending, but for me, it just wasn't. And it didn't really seem like the crowd felt like that anyway. It didn't really seem like the crowd was feeling that either, except for the specific moment where the Bucks showed up. If you look back in our watch along stream, yeah, me and Tally also got really excited when we saw the Bucks, but that quickly faded away when we realized what the Bucks were actually there to do. So I guess it also bums me out that I didn't get to fully enjoy the return of the Young Bucks because their first move is contributing to a storyline that I just want to go away. Remember, I'm just giving an opinion here. If you guys think that the show needs to end with the main title, that's whatever. But as far as I'm concerned, Toni Storm's title is also a main title, and the last two pay-per-views would have ended better if she had been closing the show. No bias whatsoever. No, but seriously, the Kenny triple threat, the Kenny Speedball and Ricochet match, that would have been a banger closer for the show. While I had a great time with the show, I felt like the pacing could have been a lot better because I genuinely forgot about Cole versus Garcia. I'm curious exactly what you mean by the pacing of it if you're forgetting Cole versus Garcia. For me, I didn't really have an issue with the actual pace of the show, other than the fact that I think it did go a little bit longer than what was necessary. And because of the example that you gave, yes, Cole versus Garcia definitely felt like a match that did not feel pay-per-view worthy based on what I would compare previous pay-per-views I've watched. If there was any match that felt like it was there because they needed to make sure they had a certain length of a pay-per-view, I would say it was Cole versus Garcia. Even Bandito versus Jericho, I feel like was more exciting to me, and mostly because I was seeing Bandito, I believe, for the first time, and even that match had kind of a weird ending, but it was entertaining. Best three-way match I've maybe ever seen, and the best defense of this current Mox title run by far. Well, the second portion of your message, I mean, it's a pretty low bar. I guess maybe some could see that was the best defense of the Mox title run by far, but I'll be honest, I have not enjoyed too many of them, and it's usually because of the way that they end, or the way that they usually get interrupted in some way, shape, or form. I'm not generally against like the interruption type finish, even if it's happening consistently, but I think because I'm already so done with the storyline, the fact that it's also ending with those types of endings combined with me being about done with the storyline, it's not a great mix. However, the Ricochet, Speedball, Kenny Omega triple threat match, that was fantastic. Speedball Mike Bailey is someone I was fortunate enough to be able to see in person when I went to TNA's Bound for Glory. Seems like a really energetic and just cool guy in general. If you follow him on any social media, I know he vlogs a lot of his trips. So I'm really happy to see him on AEW and to get such a big opportunity so early. Ricochet and Kenny Omega, you already know, are going to put on a banger of a match. So the fact that Speedball was able to not just feel like he was blending in or not even just keep up, but there were moments that it felt like Speedball was almost elevating the other two. Not that they needed it, but it definitely seemed like there were moments where Speedball was the guy. He was the guy taking the moment. I got a kick out of how Speedball and Kenny were also leaning into the bald meme toward Ricochet. They were like hitting him on the top of the head, just saying bald. I know the crowd usually does that, but that's the first time I've seen the actual wrestlers like truly lean into it during a title match of all things. I don't know about you guys, but when it comes to Ricochet, I'm completely good with Ricochet now. Like when he first came over to AEW, there was definitely, it seemed like he was still trying to get over a bit as a babyface, or it just felt like he was a copy and paste of what he was trying to do in WWE. But now with the heel turn, the heel movement, the heel promos, the matches where he's kind of also running the match like a heel, there's just things that he does that actually makes me like the whole thing where he was like talking on the microphone and Speedball came and kicked him in the face while he was in the middle of bragging to us on TV. Little moments like that, they just feel like they fit Ricochet. I feel like he can pull off that kind of like a goofy villain. And then of course Kenny Omega was spectacular as always. The ending to that match, the avalanche one-winged angel just looks nasty to actually take. First of all, that just seems like a nasty move to actually have to go through, but it was a really cool finish. And then obviously there's the obvious Okada entrance at the very end, which if you're on the Patreon, you know that we are actually going back and we are watching the Okada versus Kenny storyline like through the years or whatever. And me and Tally are watching that for the first time. So the fact that we've actually seen, as of the recording of this video, we have seen the first 2 meetings of Kenny Omega and Okada. So we've already kind of gotten a little bit up to speed that there is this big rivalry. So we did get a chance to really pop when his music hit. We haven't fully caught up yet, so no spoilers yet, but I'm looking forward to not only seeing where this goes on AEW, but I want to see the rest of their interaction of what they did in New Japan as well. Swerve and Mox had a great match. Yes, the Bucks returning was out of nowhere and off, but I'm glad they're back. Swerve lost, but I'm intrigued if they do Swerve and Hangman versus the Bucks. It does feel like with how many people came out to interfere with the end of that match, I also don't really know where exactly they're going to go with it. They even had the moment where Hangman wasn't sure exactly who he should hit the buckshot lariat, and then his hesitation obviously led to his demise. I'm not going to say this Swerve and Mox match was great, because even had Swerve won that match, I feel like him winning the match would have been the only reason I really would have enjoyed it. So this might just be a Mox thing. Maybe I just don't really vibe with the Jon Moxley flow of a match, and that's fine. That's just a personal thing at that point. But my favorite part of it was the Young Bucks actually returning. I've gotten to see a little bit, I think, of their current day. I don't really remember too much of it. I think when they were still active, I was still pretty new to AEW, but I've seen a lot of them over on the Patreon. The Patreon, by the way, is where you guys send us matches that we watch for the first time to kind of catch us up to speed on WWE and AEW, since we haven't been watching for nearly as long as most of you. So am I excited that the Bucks are back? Yeah, I'm excited because I would like to see them perform. I'm not going to be remembering how they came back very fondly. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. It wasn't a bad show at all, but I thought the mock stuff has really been drawn out way too long. I'm not really someone who gives out like a score for matches or shows, but if you force me to kind of give just maybe so you can understand a little bit of how I actually viewed the show, I still saw the show probably as a solid 7, which again is a good score in my eyes. I feel like that is a solid score, but most AEW pay-per-views leave me walking away feeling like an 8.5 or a 9, sometimes even a 10, which makes that 7 stand out as a little bit more of a meh feeling. And as for the mock stuff being drawn out, I think that is the main issue for me at this point. Is I don't mind there being a story that I'm not a fan of. You're not going to like everything. There's going to be things you love in wrestling. There's going to be things you hate in wrestling. It sucks when the thing that you're not vibing with is just not going away, and it seems like it overstays its welcome. And I've seen a lot of rumors that it seems like this might be something that is waiting potentially for Darby Allin to return, and I don't know if that's something you guys would agree with. Let me know in the comments if you think they really are waiting for Darby Allin to finish climbing an entire mountain, Mount Everest specifically, to eventually come back and take the title. I think that would be kind of crazy if they're actually waiting that long, because apparently he's not supposed to be back. Darby Allin's not supposed to be back for at least another few months. So I guess if the plan is for Darby to come back and take it from it all at All In, we're going to have to saddle up for a few more endings that look exactly like that. One of the weaker AEW pay-per-views, even with the highs of the 3-way Ospreay Tony matches, a dog crap Jericho match, a bad Adam Cole match, and an awful WCW 2000 main event. I'm just done, man. At this point, I'm not even mad. I just feel defeated. Guess American wrestling isn't for me, huh? I wouldn't go that far. I don't think it's that dramatic. I do feel like this was on the lower end of, I've said this already a few times, but it's on the lower end of an expectation of what is usually a fantastic show. I didn't think the Adam Cole match was bad. I just think it wasn't that important to be on a pay-per-view. So I guess if you removed a couple of these things that a lot of people are low on and the show was a little bit more condensed, yeah, maybe we'd feel a little bit differently. But I don't even think the Jericho match was bad. It had an awkward ending. Maybe not awkward. That's probably not fair to say. I'm not used to the refs just calling the end of a match and being like, hold on, restart the match because of some outside information we just got. It kind of threw me through a loop, but I guess I'm glad Bandito didn't have to reveal his mask. I do think that him having to win that way kind of made him look a little bit weaker, because when he beat Jericho, it was kind of a distracted Jericho, because Jericho was going after one of, I don't know if that was his mom or his sister or someone that Jericho was going after. And then Bandito kind of caught him off guard. So rather than just having him beat Jericho and look good, I thought it was kind of strange that he lost. Yes, he lost to a baseball bat, but then he does come back and win, but only on a distracted Chris Jericho to win that title. I feel like that could have been a little bit better, but I didn't think it was a terrible match by any means. And I think watching Bandito for the first time got me kind of excited for, whatever the plan is going forward with him in this ROH title. As for the last line, I'm assuming that are you saying you normally watch like New Japan? Because I'll be honest, when I watch American wrestling, like AEW specifically, and I watch New Japan, like There's some differences, but they're pretty similar in style, in my opinion. So I don't know. Maybe this is just an iffy show. Like, I don't know if this was like one of your first shows or something that I don't. It does feel like a little bit of an overdramatic reaction, but you know, to each their own. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Speedball should 100% be the guy to dethrone Jon Moxley. He impressed me a lot tonight. Plus, he carried that triple threat hard. I can tell you are a Speedball fan. I do not believe that he carried the triple threat between him, Ricochet, and Kenny Omega hard. I think he definitely had some very exciting spots, and I think the only one of the only really exciting spots that Kenny had was probably the finish. I don't think that was the only exciting spot he had. Or I disagree with you there. I don't think he carried it hard. I think you can be a standout in a match without carrying the match. So hard disagree there. As for him being the 100% guy to dethrone Jon Moxley, this also sounds like you're a big Speedball fan, so there might be a little bit of bias here, but I'll throw that to you guys. I don't feel like I have been watching AEW long enough or know enough about Speedball, other than the little bit that I've seen it with TNA. Does that make any sense? Does AEW have a history of bringing in someone new and then dethroning the main title holder? That seems like off the wall, but I figured I would include it because just because I don't understand it doesn't mean it's not true, right? I had such high hopes, but it was such a letdown. Tony versus Megan ended in a roll up, which makes Megan look stupid and unfocused after she kicked out at 1. Yeah, that makes sense. Then Jericho Bandito finish was so stupid, just let him win clean. So I already said what I felt about Jericho and Bandito. I do kind of agree that I would have liked to have seen him just win clean. But I want to focus on what you said about Tony versus Megan. I do think you have a little bit of a point, but I'm going to throw a counter back at you. I do agree that it is a little bit of a weird thing to see her look so strong, kick out at 1, and then very soon lose after. I don't think it matters that she lost in a roll-up. I don't think that's too relevant because losing to a roll-up I don't think makes you look weak or stupid. I think in wrestling kayfabe and lore, or whatever you want to call it, the roll-up is not about how strong it is. I mean, there's the memes that it's like the deadliest move or whatever. But the whole thing is that it's kind of surprising. It's out of nowhere, kind of uncomfortable. It's supposed to be something that catches you off guard, which, sure, you could make the argument that it makes her look weak or whatever because she wasn't on guard, especially after kicking out at 1. So I'm going to half agree with you. I'm going to agree that it does look weird that she lost so soon after a pretty kind of an epic moment kicking out at 1 like that. But I would argue that losing to a roll up in general, kind of having that surprise factor, you just kind of you only got beat because something quick and you know, sneaky caught you off guard. I don't want to say it makes you look strong, but I do think it takes away from looking bad just a little bit. I feel like if my favorite wrestler is going to lose and I don't want there to be interference, losing to a surprising roll up, I feel like kind of makes it feel like, no, hold on, let me get another shot at that. Like, you caught me off guard. You didn't really beat me, that kind of thing. I'll be honest though, that's just kind of how I've always perceived the roll-up pin. I never saw it as like this weak thing that you shouldn't lose to. I always saw it as if you can pull it off, it's kind of this sneaky way of stealing the match, which if anything, it makes Megan seem like that she could beat Tony. And if anything, it makes Tony's win look a little bit weaker. So it kind of goes, in my opinion, the opposite direction of what you're saying here. I love AEW, but these shows are just way too long, especially on a Sunday night. I think this is a fair conversation to have, and I'll be very upfront. I'm not complaining. I can live with these longer shows, generally speaking, but I do think there is some fairness here, and I've seen this opinion kind of float around a little bit, and I just think it's worth bringing up. 9 times out of 10, I am fine with these longer pay-per-views that I get from AEW, and especially longer if you're also watching the hour earlier and you're watching the 0-hour show. So if you started watching at 7 p.m. Eastern, this show went well over 5 hours for you, and I agree that is a long time, especially on the East Coast and especially on a Sunday night. However, I will say that AEW shows, they typically deliver on such a high level. Talking specifically the pay-per-views, they typically deliver on such a high level that I don't even notice what time it is until we're getting to like the main event and I go, oh my God, it's actually almost over. Like, wow, I didn't expect that. You know, one of those time flies when you're having fun kind of thing. But whenever it is this kind of a show where it's more of a middle of the road and it feels like there's 1 or 2 matches that don't really feel like pay-per-view quality, at least not AEW pay-per-view quality, I do find myself looking at the clock and being like, wow, we've been going on for 4+ hours, or dang, I'm getting a little bit tired. I'm an old man. All right, I'll get tired. I don't think this is something that necessarily needs to be changed or fixed. I'm pretty fine with how it is, but I'm just I wanted to validate this comment, and it looks like I've seen a couple others that are somewhat similar to this, where the length of the show was kind of an issue, but maybe it was less about the length and the fact that it's the normal length on a Sunday night, which is tough for a lot of people. Fun show overall. In regards to the ending, I was surprisingly okay with it. I'm upset that Swerve lost, but the Bucks returning has made the Death Riders the most interesting they've been since their birth. Plus, it was much better than that Revolution ending and pays off all those teases the Elite and Death Riders had last fall. At this point, I'm fully convinced Mox is holding on to that title until All In, where either Ospreay or Darby in the wildcard spot win the Owen for the right to challenge him. I'm tired. That took me a lot of tries. Okay, I added this one. I don't really have much to counter on this one. I don't feel like I'm well versed in the history here or what to make a prediction like this, but I wanted to include it because honestly, I guess I just wanted to throw out that there are other opinions here. I know a lot of people have been really trashing this, but there clearly are people that do enjoy where this is going and they enjoy the Young Bucks return. The only part that I will disagree with you on is that the Bucks returning has made the Death Riders more interesting. I don't think the Bucks returning has, but I will remain open-minded until Wednesday, and hopefully the Bucks are there. Hopefully the Bucks have something to say, to explain themselves, and maybe, just maybe, they can say something that will add a little bit of spice for me to maybe get the Death Rider storyline to be a little bit more interesting. But other than that, I really just wanted to include this just because I don't want this to just be something where it's nothing but everybody hating on the main event. Omega and Okada should unify their titles to officially turn it into second world title for Collision as the International Classic Championship or something. I just thought that was kind of an interesting idea of them competing, both putting titles on the line and unifying them. I'm curious what you guys think of that. I just thought that was kind of an interesting idea. I'm very much looking forward to Omega versus Okada, so something like this would spice it up for me personally. But to also be fair, I don't have like a long attachment to these titles, so unifying them, I'm sure, could be like tougher for someone who might be more attached to either of these titles long term, so I get it. I said that FTR was going to turn heel on Cope afterwards. They can't stop the Death Riders because I think that FTR is better in the AEW as a heel and not babyface. I'll be honest, I was just looking for any reason to talk about the FTR match. Not really, almost nobody brought it up, so here you go. I liked the heel turn. It definitely, I wouldn't say it caught me off guard, and I think it's because a lot of people were foreshadowing it, but I was very satisfied with the way they went about it. I liked that there was that little bit of a tension where one of them, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I don't know their names. I don't know the two guys on FTR's names yet. Every time I learn it, I forget it. I don't know. I'm not good with names and I keep forgetting it, but I can picture them both perfectly. But I like that one of them initiated the attack, the other hesitated, and then kind of had us thinking, oh crap, maybe there's going to be a split of FTR as well. But then they end up working together. They drop them. I did see some people saying they were hoping that Christian Cage was going to come out and back up Cope, kind of reuniting Christian and Edge from back in the day and kind of bringing them to be some sort of a partnership again. I think that would be kind of cool. I don't know how that would exactly align in terms of story and what their characters are at right now versus what they used to be. But I won't lie, it would have been kind of cool to see Christian come out there and kind of be like, hey, I still got your back, homie, or something. I don't know. This is where I'm a little bit held back by. I don't know what has fully happened in their history, so I don't even know if that would be weird for him to like suddenly want to protect Cope/Edge. I don't know. I'm curious what you think of that one. I think they'd be cool to see them together. That's just me. I have a theory that they're going to combine the Elite and the Death Riders and maybe the Hurt Syndicate with MJF, and Shane McMahon will lead them, and they're going to rule AEW, and there will be a war between this faction and the rest of the AEW roster. Congrats. That's insane, but yours got picked because nobody else brought up the Hurt Syndicate. And I want to talk about that for a brief second. While I haven't been like super locked in and invested in the Hurt Syndicate, I did get a little bit more interested when I thought there was a chance that one of my favorite AEW wrestlers, MJF, was going to get involved. And I was very happy to see MJF get himself involved and get put in a position where he helped them win, which I'm sure that Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin are going to say that we didn't need your help. You should have stayed out of it. I think that's the kind of conversation we're going to get on Wednesday, but I'm excited to see MJF kind of make a move that could insert himself within that faction, with even if it's short term, even if it's awkward, even if it leads to a feud with them. I like it. I'm a fan of it. I like MJF. I like when he's in these kind of funny scenarios. I'm good with it. I want to see more of it. This is a wild theory, by the way. As a whole, I enjoyed the show. It was not anywhere close to my favorite AEW pay-per-view. It might have been my second to least favorite, which, again, I've only been watching for a year, so, I mean, the list isn't that long, but I think the only one I truly did not enjoy as a whole more was probably Full Gear. I'm happy to discuss it further down in the comments, or if you want to join a community that watches not just AEW, but we watch WWE, we watch New Japan. It's fans of all wrestling promotions. I highly encourage you to either subscribe to the channel or join the Discord, or both. And the the Discord, we're talking about pro wrestling of all kinds, 24 hours a day in an anti-tribalistic kind of way. We like to keep it positive over the Discord, so if you want to be part of a community like that, feel free to check out the link below. Thanks for watching the video all the way through. Don't forget to hit the like button, drop a comment. Thank you to the patrons flying up the screen. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. When I was a child, a deer that had recently sprouted antlers ran into the street and the swerving car ran over my dog. That is only the third worst young buck in my life. What the fuck?